Call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 21st, 2021 meeting of the Building Code Board of Appeals. I'd like to start first with the roll call, starting to the far left, please.
Donald Haskin.
Danny Johnson.
Stephen Wilson.
Wayne Hunt.
Mike Mummel.
Very good. That means we have a quorum, so we can start the meeting. Tonight we'll be discussing new business, specifically a request by Sunrun Installation Services to review a decision regarding modification to IRC 2018 R32.4.6 roof access and pathways at 22692 Fairview Drive in Chapticot, Maryland, 20621. I would go ahead and like to start this meeting just with some general discussions about what we think we can and cannot do at this juncture with the information that has been presented to us. Do I have anybody that wants to start discussions?
Is the applicant here?
Yes, sir.
The applicant is currently not here.
He's coming in
He's
now.
parking.
Okay.
Update, parking.
He is parking.
Okay.
So, just reading briefly what's been given to us as far as the information on what the board can do. The Building Code Board of Appeals shall have the authority to grant modifications for individual cases, provided the Building Code Board of Appeals shall first find that the modification is in compliance with the intent and purpose of this code and that such modification does not lessen the health, accessibility, life, and fire safety or structural requirements. Is there anybody from the county that would like to start discussions on this at this point?
We're here to answer questions.
Okay.
The county's not presenting a case.
Well, it appears that the question is accessibility. And one of the requirements of granting a waiver is that it cannot reduce accessibility. So I don't think we're in a position to grant a waiver.
So, according to what I read, the old code, you had to have accessibility. This is just saying you have to have more.
Right.
We've got these systems all over the county that have access. They just don't have as much access as the new code.
No.
Could we, Harry, could we have amended this when we amended the code? Is this amendable?
Yes, it is. And per some of the information that was provided, it's being discussed by the Solar Task Force that they may recommend that it be amended by the county commissioners.
But currently, there is no amendment for this. It's what the code is. It states it has to have accessibility on both sides.
Right, there is no locally adopted amendment. The code pages that were provided to you are the current adopted ordinance.
The Solar Task Force, is that
That's who I was
or
talking
to
about.
the county or just
They were appointed
recommendation?
by the county commissioners to weigh in on the subject of solar panels, solar farms.
And then when we had these changes or the upgrades or amendments, what was their position on that?
They had not been formed yet.
Okay, this is all new.
Yes.
So this is their opinion after the amendments?
After the new code book was adopted.
Okay,
And there was an email from Mike Thompson explaining their position on that.
yeah.
Also included
And
in that email chain is a letter, is from Joe Gwyther, who represents the St. Mary's County Fire Board.
Who doesn't have any problem with it?
He doesn't have a problem with it.
That's what I read, yeah. So the fire department doesn't have a problem with it. It sounds like they're going to change it.
Yep.
Just because the systems work
And
better.
this recommendation from the Solar Task Force, or whatever we're calling it, did this come because of this
No, no,
request? It was just
No,
something they
no.
were working on anyway, that they were
Correct.
looking at the new code?
correct.
Okay. And there was no problem before, it just was the new code that we adopted?
Right.
Yeah, the history of solar panel regulation in St. Mary's County is that prior to 2015, we did not require a building permit, and so there was no building code inspection on solar panels prior to the adoption of the 2015 code. What's interesting is when the 2015 code was adopted, it had an error that put on the walkways, pathways, and then it turned out that was a typo in the first printing. That was meant for the International Fire Code, not the International Residential Code, so an errata sheet went out. And so those pathways were not part of the 2015 code, but then when the 2018 code was adopted by the International Code Council, they managed to put the pathways back in. So effective March 10th of 2020 is when the pathways were required in St. Mary's County.
And in your opinion, we're going to reverse back to the,
It's not my opinion, but what I would say is, based on the Solar Task Force work, they have drafted a recommendation that the pathways be diminished. And you know,
Diminished
I can't predict that the recommendation will be made to the county commissioners. If it is made to the county commissioners, will the county commissioners choose to hold a public hearing to adopt it?
what was the previous pathways, or there was none?
Prior to 2015, there was none. And then exactly what the 2015 code says, I don't know.
No,
And
'cause I
what you
think-
have before you
I
is the
think there was a
2018
pathway.
code.
Like,
There should be some kind of pathway. I
There
mean,
was a pathway.
36s might be too much, but,
This is expanding it the way I understand.
right, that's what I say, what was it before? Was it 18 inches or 24 inches?
I didn't-
Now it's 36, which is,
Yeah.
have you got to have two pathways that's 6 feet on the roof that's taken up?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. If you have access on one side of the roof.
Mr. Sunrun? Yes, sir. All right, well, please.
Okay, we do have our applicant.
Right here?
Yes, sir. And you can, why don't you take the middle seat, and you're welcome to remove your mask once you sit down.
Okay, great. Thank you guys very much for having me. First time I've ever done anything like this, so really appreciate you guys taking some time aside. This man here is very knowledgeable in this. I can't claim to have that level of knowledge, but I was here to discuss one of our systems in particular that I think, covers this issue pretty well. Up until that recent point, we did not have to have a 3-foot setback on the ridge. Our system was designed with 3-foot setbacks on the side of the house. So we could set up a ladder if needed, a firefighter, for example, and they could access from there. Now, again, this is my first time doing anything like this. So it may come off as informal. I'm not here to pose a case necessarily. I'm actually here to admit Sunrun's guilt in this matter. We missed on the permit where it noted that 2018 IRC code requirements were in place. It was something we were not aware of, that these plans were not actually reviewed before the permit was issued to us. And the way that our system works is we have our centralized design team, and they have their software for each AHJ, each county, that shows the specific code requirements and requests from that county. When we get some sort of red line from the AHJ or some sort of feedback, we then go into that system and we update it. So when we begin a solar design, we make sure that we're in compliance. Because we had that issued permit, we believed that system was then ready for install, and we proceeded with the install. After that, the third-party inspector, MDIA, that St. Mary's County uses, then they were doing their job and they were following code, and they rejected that inspection. So I was here to speak specifically about this customer, the Swan residence, and looking into the possibility of allowing this system to stay on the roof, because if we had to put 3-foot setbacks on the ridge, that would require that system to have to be taken down, redesigned, re-permitted, and reinstalled, which is really going to be costly for not just Sunrun, but especially for the customer, which is really why I came down from Baltimore County today to talk about it, because I want to provide a good customer experience for this person. So hopefully that's not too much rambling. That's what I wanted to discuss today in particular.
So what was the 15 code, the old code? What did that say?
So the 15 code did not have any restrictions on the ridge. So if you drive around St. Mary's County, I was looking at a few systems, while driving down here, and you won't see any setbacks on the ridge in particular. And I brought the plan sets for this system. You can see we have 1-foot setbacks on the ridge. One side we had 11 inches, and the other side we had 1 foot. And then we had, I'll read it right here, we had 3 arrays on the system. On one array we had 6 feet and 4 inches. On the side of the house is a pathway. The other we had 3'8" on both sides, and the third array we had 4'4" and 4'2", 4 foot 2 inches. So to answer your question, embarrassingly, I don't know the exact requirements on the side. In my opinion, that's the most important. That we have some sort of walkway on the side, but And on the ridge, I'm not necessarily going to, here to present my
The
opinion
system
on
you
it.
had before with everything that's plugged in, there was no setback for the ridge at all?
Correct. And that's how it is in most AHJs at the moment.
This is to Harry. The 2015, was there any setbacks? In our, we didn't
trust-
have a code, but was there any?
Don't trust me
Well,
on that.
okay, I don't trust this gentleman, but he, as a solar installer, made the statement that it's his belief that the 2015 code did not have a ridge setback. I don't have that memorized. I don't have the 2015 book with me.
I'm going to speak up on this. We keep referring to the 2015 code. That code's gone. We're filed in the 2018. It's specific in the 2018 of what the setbacks are. I know we keep referring back, but it's the same as electrical code. It changes every 3 years with updates, better safety, better. We need to stop going to the 2015 and confer what the 2018 says.
I was just asking the question.
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure we're,
Mr. Knight, what level of review do these plans get from your office?
None.
So they make an application and it's on them to make sure it meets code?
That is correct. We don't do code review for any residential projects of any size or scope.
And the recommendation by our solar task force,
This
But
wouldn't meet it.
I know, but I'm just saying, when is that going to be in review or?
Well, it's a draft recommendation. Their final report is due to the county commissioners in June.
Okay.
It may or may not make the final cut.
But if they did decide to do that, which is fine, this still doesn't meet
The new
the new
recommendations.
recommendations.
Right.
I thought he met the old recommendations, or whatever they were at the time. But you don't have any, how much room do you have on the peak for access?
The peak, so
From the top of the peak to
combined,
the
it's
panel?
23 inches combined, so 11 inches on one side and 12
Okay,
on
so,
the other.
and what they're saying is, they want 36 on one side, the way I read it,
Right.
right?
And that's with the 2018 IRC.
that's for the fire department.
Well, they
too.
want it on both sides. I think the task force just say one side's good enough. The way I read it.
Yeah, I mean, having been at the solar task force meetings, that was kind of the gist of it.
And that's when the fire department said they were okay with it. So he
Okay with the 3 foot on one side or the
one
other,
side. So
instead of 3 feet
he's
on
got,
both
he's got
sides,
22 inches of
total.
total, and the new code is going to be
70.
36 on one side.
Right. Well, the existing code is 36 and
On both
36, so
sides.
it's 72 inches.
Doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, to me.
If they pass what the solar recommends, and we don't know that they're going to do that,
Right.
that's, we got both sides, not.
Do we have any feedback? I thought I heard somebody mention that we heard something from the fire department on this. Have they?
That's what I want to hear.
Well, it's on that email chain from Mike Thompson of the Solar Task Force. Joe Gwither have you received comments through board docs or anything?
I put everything on board docs, yes.
But you haven't received any emails or anything, which would be unusual for a special meeting like this.
I have not.
Yeah. But so Joe Gwither, you should see it on that email chain, represents the St. Mary's County Fire Board. He provides comments for Technical Evaluation Committee. So he was consulted by the Solar Task Force in regards to their proposed recommendation.
That's what you should.
I'm not seeing it in there. Can you just summarize it for me?
Oh, well, that he was okay with their recommendation as,
Of 36 inches on one side.
One side or the other.
because it provides a pathway across the ridge. And so if you're looking for a pathway across the ridge, why did it need to be both sides? The whole reason the Solar Task Force was pushing to diminish it is because if this is the south side, Mike Thompson is an expert on residential solar. My words, he may disagree with me, but some of the best sun is up there at the ridge, and so squeezing out that extra foot or two up there, he thinks is a big solar difference, and so he was a big proponent of the proposed revision, and so they prudently asked the fire board for their input, and there you have it.
Okay.
So he does have access. It's just not enough. He's got 22
He's got
inches.
36 on one side where you can say, well, I want 18 on this side and 18 on this side, so
Well,
maybe it
it's-
can straddle the roof, whatever.
They're gonna, I mean, it's gonna be tough
But
because.
regardless,
Because it's on.
you still want 36 regardless on one side or the other.
One side
I
or
guess
the
the
other.
north side or whatever it's going to be.
So
I think if we had the 36, and that's what the recommendations is, maybe we could
We could do something.
do something, think about it.
That's
But
what
with
they-
this,
Whether it was 18 on this side and 18 or 10 and 26 or whatever,
Right.
as long as you got the 36 inches.
Yeah, and I understand that requirement. It makes a lot of sense, right? And, we're here to comply. If nothing else from this, I just want to make it clear. Mr. Knight, thanks for your help with all of this, but we have learned from it. We know now.
I think it's
that-
completely installed.
Yeah, it's completely installed, and in every system leading up to this one, we were not required to have those setbacks. And, this St. Mary's County operates differently than any other AHJ that we work in the sense that, if there's something on the plans that is bothering that AHJ or not to their code requirements, they'll provide red lines to us, which is when we then, make those updates to our software. So, I really wanted to emphasize, this project in particular, because I can guarantee it would be the last one. The moment we learned of this code update, we made the necessary changes in our system, and so no other systems will be will fail inspection.
That's my next question. You got any other projects ongoing in our county?
So unfortunately, we don't operate as much as we should down here. We need to get our sales reps down in St. Mary's County. Right now, we don't have much volume in there. I think we've built maybe a couple
I
since
was
this.
just
but
alluding that you're going by the code now.
Yeah, but we are absolutely going by the code. It was an immediate reaction there. So, moving forward, what we know we will do every single time is to double check, the fine print there, make sure that, everything that we have in our system is accurate. If there's anything new that has been rolled out, then we'll make sure to make those changes. We were aware of the NEC update. We had a notification sent to our master electrician in April 2020. So we had updated our systems for that. But we missed the IRC. Which is on us, you know. But that was the one system that was impacted. That system is on the roof. It's fully installed.
And there's no room for adjustment whatsoever in the design?
Well,
Complete tear off.
It appears to me that there's room for some adjustment on one side, one roof side.
yeah, we would have to lose one row. So it would be.
It's not possible to shift it down to get your clearance? To shift that entire array down instead of ripping out one
No,
line?
there's not enough clearance on the ridge, or I'm sorry, on the eave to do that.
So what are the eve requirements?
Well, we have our own eave requirements for safety. So 6 inches is what we require at the very minimum. But, you know, with 1 foot at the ridge currently, specifically looking at, you know, array 2 as an example, you know, the south-facing array, if we were to shift that another 2 feet to meet 2018 code, we would then have to lose that bottom row.
I was looking at array 1. Array 1 appears to have room with the eave for you to shift it down. It appears as though that would be a compromise. The cost there should only be, you know, flashing and installation costs.
Well, there are roof vents on that roof plane that would prevent us from doing that. Now,
But you may lose 1, maybe 2 at that point.
yeah, if we were allowed to shift array 1 and leave array 2 as is and ensure that we have, you know, 36 inches of clearance on that north-facing roof, that could be a great compromise where we can save some production. Obviously, the customer is going to have to lose some, but we could. It would be a lot less drastic than if we had to make that adjustment on the south-facing array as well.
So you're talking you could get the 36 inches on one side?
Yeah. And I think, you know, listening to the criteria that I listed previously about what we can and can't do, is we're meeting the spirit or the intent of the regulations by at least providing a accessible route.
So array 2, how far,
I agree.
the array 2 is how far from the, I don't have the scale from it.
You mentioned what, like
You said 6
12
inches.
or something previously, 12?
But you said 6 on one side and 11 on the other or something.
So yeah, array 2, we
Array-
have only 11 feet, or I'm sorry, 11 inches to spare on the eave. Array 2 is the largest array on the south facing roof plane. Array 1 is the array that we're talking about shifting
Yeah.
to provide that 36 inches.
Can it be shifted 25 inches down? I mean, you've got 11 on one side and 25 on the other.
And I see your vents. Looks like you'll be
Yep.
right up against them. It's going to be close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's the plans are showing, you know, the distance from the bottom module to the very bottom tip. It's not taking into consideration, or the very bottom tip of the eave. It's not taking into consideration that add-on section of array 3. So it's tough to say exactly what the gap is between the eave and the modules there, but it's certainly something that we could try. You know, I could give our designer a call right after this and figure that out to see, you know, how much production can we keep here.
Just, you know, keep in mind, we're trying to work with you here to get the one side 36, but any other installations, you're still following the the 2018
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood.
until something is amended or sent in, correct?
Absolutely, yes, our systems are updated for that.
So I guess you can come back once you have your redesign, and then we can approve 36 inches.
Or we could
on one
approve it conditional. The,
Conditional.
would the inspectors be able to follow through with whatever we do as far as no conditional approval?
I guess if it's phrased clearly, but in theory, you could say approved on the condition that there's a minimum, state the number
Inches
on,
One side.
on one side?
yeah.
Were you saying minimum of 36 on one side, or can we use the 11 plus 25 on the other? I
They're
mean, you got
not,
the peak.
they're not saying that.
They're looking for the
solar
36 inches
If the
to
solar
come-
task force was looking for that, I would say yes, but I don't think they are.
I think
the
we
code's
need 36
pretty
inches
clear.
because the fire department's got to get down, and they need that 36 inches to get in, or out, bringing people out through the attic.
And from the ridge and not from the other array. I think the intent is the 36 inches.
Right. That's better than 72.
Okay.
Yes, it is, it is.
So it's been brought to my attention. Mr. Finch, if we pass something here tonight as far as a conditional approval, would your department be able to follow through and make sure that it happens?
They'll follow whatever's on the drawing. Whatever's approved drawings.
Please come to the microphone.
Sorry. Mr. Finch with NDIA, John Finch.
What we do, we will inspect what is been represented, that, whatever has been approved. Okay.
But we've got this disconnect in that if there's a set of drawings, they're not going to be reviewed by the county, so without something to,
But those set of drawings go to the county land use.
but they're not reviewed.
They're not reviewed, but they're received.
And they go to you.
And then they send them to us, and that's what we look at.
If I may, what we would attach to an amended permit is the board's order. So that's why I was saying if your conditional approval is clear enough on what it is the building inspector is directed to look for.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to make sure that if we entertain a motion here tonight, that it will be taken care of, rather than make the applicant draw plans and then come back and get everybody to reconvene to take care of the matter.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Ms. Smith, what do we call the final document that they'll produce? I used the word order, but do we actually call it that? Is it just
I
a,
don't think so. I think it's
bear with me while I look at your,
approval letter.
let me look at your,
I'm trying to figure out why we're here. I know why we're here, because it failed, and I was the one that failed it. But they're asking for a waiver on the code that's been adopted by the commissioners. Okay? But we've had instances that land use waived other solar setbacks. So why is this one has to come to the board?
I think the answer to that is right or wrong. What's been done in the past, it's not what we should be dealing with. It's what's right now. I mean,
Well, no, right.
the past or,
But what are you talking about past?
yeah.
What year are you talking about past?
I have-
I'm saying the 2018 code stipulated the 3-foot setback, 18 inches on the ridge if it's 33% at plain view. And that's plain view, that's an aerial going down on the whole roof line. Okay? And that's what that is. And we had other instances of the same magnitude that were waived or a lot, whatever. But
Since the adoption of this code,
What's that?
since this code was adopted,
since March 10th of
The
2018.
county has waived some of these setbacks?
Well, if I can clarify. So the 2018 code was adopted and took effect March 10th of 2010. And there were some solar panel companies who had contracted to do solar panel installations, unaware that we were getting ready to change. And so it is true that the permit office granted some grace to some permits early in that time period. But this code is over a year old, and in hindsight, that was not the appropriate way to handle it. This is the appropriate way to handle it.
Mr.
So
Knight?
the purpose of this meeting tonight is not to discuss the actions of the Department of Land Use and Growth Management in the past. It's to hear this applicant's case before you.
Mr. Knight, would you clarify the date that the code started to be enforced? I heard 2010, and I know that's not...
March
Yeah, March
10th.
10th.
March 10th of 2020. I may have
2020,
misspoken, but it
okay.
was March 10th of 2020.
So it has been in effect for over a year.
Yeah.
Yes, and this permit was applied for on July 13th. I believe that was the first system that we had installed following the adoption of that 2018 code.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think if your order, I'm going to use the word order again because I couldn't find the resolution that created you. Your finding, your decision would then dictate what the allowed or minimum setback is. And then we will attach that to the revised permit and transmit that to the Middle Department Inspection Agency for them to then inspect in accordance with the board's decision.
Okay. And this is, of course, just this case.
Correct. This is a special meeting for this one case.
We haven't had any other issues with any other solar companies.
Well, there have been solar companies. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this is your resolution. There are other solar companies who, we had a few comments when we were adopting the 2018 code against the new setbacks, but they didn't sway the county commissioners at that time, and no one came to the public hearing to speak up. And then as we were just talking about, we did have a couple of solar companies who were caught unawares. But this is the first one that's come to my attention in a great period of time, and we felt that this was the appropriate venue. So have I lost track of what your question was?
No, but I got another part to it, Mr. Finch. It's, there was no code prior to this, adopting the International Residential Code 2018.
There was the 2015
The
version
2015.
2015
That's what we
version.
don't know.
that I believe,
Before this was MDIA inspecting solar systems. Who was,
prior to the adoption of the 2015 code, only the electrical was being inspected,
Right.
not the building code provisions.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Finch, do you know the setbacks that were required in the 2015 code?
The setbacks were, at the beginning, were enforced. And then the errata came out where, like I say, it was a misprint.
Okay.
So at the beginning of 15 code, they were enforced,
What,
which was basically 18 inches on the ridge on both sides,
both sides?
okay, and 3 foot, and then all you needed was 3 foot pathway up, up the roof.
But then that was
But the-
taken out, and there was no setback
So then,
required
right, there
at
was
the
nothing
ridge.
at all.
Okay. Thank you.
And so the formal terminology is a decision shall be in writing. We'll look for your board to make a decision.
Okay, decision. Is there any more discussion? Does anybody want to hazard a motion?
Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment?
No, just thank you for meeting. Really appreciate
No,
it.
we-
Did you want, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Haskin. My name is George Calnessy Jr., 23305 Maypole Road, Leonardtown, Maryland, and I'm offering some public citizen comments. As you noted, you can't waive the requirements of the code, only resolve misinterpretations or approve alternative methods which are in compliance with the intent and purpose of the code. It's right in the code. And it's stated repeatedly in multiple sections of the building code. What alternative method is being applied and which is equal or greater? That's my question. Testimony by Harry Knight in February, I think it was, if not January 29th of 2020, the Board of County Commissioners meeting stated that he contacted a fire department subject matter expert, Mr. Keith Fairfax, regarding the egress and access requirements in the code, and no changes were suggested. So there has been official testimony given to the Board of County Commissioners about this. So my question is, how can the board invalidate the subject matter expert's opinion? You may disagree with some of my comments, but where are the alternative materials, design, and methods of construction and equipment where the Board of Appeals finds that the proposed design is satisfactory and complies with the intent and the provisions of the code, and that the material, method of work offered is, for the proposed intended, not less than the equivalent of the prescribed in the code quality, strength, effectiveness, fire resistance, durability, and safety? It's the follow-on section to what your requirements are in A104.11. I haven't seen anything presented, physical evidence presented to this board tonight. And I'm not trying to be pejorative with this gentleman. I know he's just trying to keep a company, delivering a product. I got it. But there are safety concerns. Now, I know Joe Gwyther. I know Keith Fairfax. Well-documented professionals in the fire service. And I've been in St. Mary's County Fire Service for more than 49 years. And I can tell you that you may think that if you're on a roof with wind whipping and fire breathing up your backside and you got 40 to 50 pounds of equipment on your back, that you've got enough room on 18 inches or 11 inches or 36 inches. And you're up there trying to get somebody out of a fire. You don't know what a fire is going to do, when it's going to change, how the travel is going to be. If you do, please tell me what the Powerball winning numbers are next week, because I want to play those numbers too, if you're that well attuned to what a fire and how it's going to change. So my concern is that you're adjusting these setbacks, and they were well-founded when the design of the code was put in place. And, I heard what Mr. Knight said about land use, granted other provisions, or grandfathering, whatever term you want to use, but I don't understand how you can do something like that after the code is approved. We know how this works. This is not new. I've read all 73 pages of this code, and there are no provisions granted by the county commissioners in either. So how are there other waivers or approvals that are out there? I know that there were decisions made a few years ago. Employees were terminated from land use because of not following this. So again, I'm wondering, what else don't the commissioners know? So I just wanted to bring these points out. And I'm still looking for where the tests and the evidence are, and the research reports that have been brought before this board. I don't see it. So those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
So, Chairman, while it is true that that was my correspondence with Mr. Fairfax in January, February, before the code was adopted in March, the more recent communication with Keith Fairfax and Joe Gwyther was December 16th of 2020, so nearly a whole year later. And when the Solar Task Force contacted them to consider the proposed revisions, is how we arrived at that. And here's an email dated December 16, 2020 which I can share with the board. So on Wednesday, December 16, 2020, 7:50 PM, Joe Gwyther wrote, I'm sorry. On Wednesday, December 16, 2020, 4:39 PM, Rudolph Fairfax, commonly known as Keith, said, "Joe, this looks reasonable. Your thoughts, Keith?" And Joe's response was, "Agree, the 3-foot setback on all sides seems too conservative. I would guess whoever proposed that did not consider the inefficiency it creates in a small residential installation. The code would do well to make a distinction between a large commercial installation and a residential one. Some fine-tuning of the national and local code is in order."
Okay.
So any comments on the testimony that we've heard?
I mean,
My first thought, I guess, just thinking about this out loud is, what is the county's liability at this point if we approve something outside of the realm of the code? If there's loss of life, limb, or property because a fire couldn't be put out properly, is the county liable because of our actions here tonight?
I'm not the county attorney, but I don't think, well, here we go.
Bill Hunt, Director, Land Use and Growth Management. The reason why the Building Code Board of Appeals was formed has been read into the record tonight. You gentlemen volunteered to serve, and the Commissioners of St. Mary's County appointed you because of your expertise in building matters. If you make the decision that, well, when you make a decision, or if you make a decision that what you're presented with on a case-by-case basis, this being a case, that you are convinced that what you decide, while it deviates from the code, it's your expert opinion that is just as safe as what would be provided in the code. Therefore, because the commissioners, again, I'm not the county attorney, but I know the reason why this board was established and am familiar enough with the purpose and intent, that when you make the decision that in this case or any case, what is being presented complies in a fashion that's just as safe, if not safer, than what the code provides, then that's your purpose. And the county wouldn't be liable for your decision. It would be supporting your decision because your decision as experts is such and such, and that's what the county would go by.
I think it kind of falls back. One of the words he says, it doesn't lessen. The first document that you read, Mr. President, was it does not, the modification does not lessen health, accessibility, life, and fire safety or structural requirements. Even if we give them the 36 inches, we're still lessening what the code says.
Less than what the code is.
So to me, that then puts liability.
So,
and I'm all for the firefighters too. It gives them less room than they need and deserve. With those things said, it's kind of hard to, in my opinion, amend this. Even I was sitting there thinking, I was talking about the 36, and I've read this document over and over, and it kind of falls into, as we sit on electrical board as well, you can do a mod, but you cannot lessen the health, safety, or anything like that. So you're kind of, I just don't think we can go in that direction, I mean, legally or any other way.
I would think we could. I mean, we are, common sense, I guess, would say, I mean, what's 36? Maybe it should be 6 feet. I mean, where does it end? Maybe there should be no solar panels on roofs because it might burn down. But if, from what I've read, what they're going to change it to, obviously, that this correspondence with the fire department is okay, I don't see why we couldn't use their professional opinion to sway my opinion. And that's what I'm going to use.
That's a proposal that has not been
Been
presented
approved.
or accepted. We have a code in effect that says you need 36 inches on both sides of the peak, which is 6 feet. And there's no way that you can say that 3 feet is as safe as 6 feet. So we would be
I mean, we could go on
reducing
forever.
accessibility. I mean, the code was accepted. I mean, we can say we don't like it and we want to change it, but that's not the purpose of this. We can grant a waiver that provides equal accessibility, equal safety, and how do you do that?
All right. Once again, does anybody want to hazard a motion?
What do we call this? Just the address?
Yeah, it doesn't have a number, so I'm assuming we'll just give it, we'll go with the address. There's a building permit number I saw somewhere too. What do you think we should do, Mr. Knight?
Either one is fine. Building permit 20-1633.
I would move that the waiver requested for building permit 20-1633 be rejected on the grounds that we cannot guarantee equal access and safety.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a second motion.
All right. Let's vote.
Deny.
Do you agree or
I'm agreeing.
you're agreeing? I'll agree.
I disagree.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks.
I'm on the fence. It's over now, but business person, I feel your pain, but as a.
Yeah, I do too. I mean,
they're
heaven knows I've made enough
all-volunteer fire
mistakes.
department down here, and we got a
I
lot
mean,
of friends
this has been a
that's how
learning
we get
experience.
protected, and we're looking out for their safety as well.
We all feel your pain, but I feel like our hands are tied.
Understood, and, putting myself in your shoes, I understand why you're making the decision you're making. So I felt like we had to give it a try for our customer at least.
Absolutely.
So really appreciate everyone. I didn't know everyone was gathering just for this, but really appreciate the time, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
On that, I guess with no further business, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.